Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of the West Wing, the show of dedication, hospitality, employees only, monkey shoulder scotch, and so much more. Today's episode is kind of a two-parter. First, I get to sit down with Dev Johnson from Employees Only. He was in town with Ezra Starr and Vance at Nickel City doing some teaching, doing some competition for monkey shoulder scotch. We talk about his life, starting in acting and ending up in hospitality. It's an amazing conversation, one that I won't soon forget. And Dev and his crew from Employees Only were recently in town for a tiki takeover at the Townsend. Got to catch up. And you know what, Dev? My apologies for waiting so long to put this out. Listening back, man, this is a lovely, lovely chat. And then at the end of the episode, we talk about Vance Henderson's role and transition into the national brand ambassador for Monkey Shoulder Blended Scotch. Great chat. Always good catching up with those folks. There's lots to learn here. We talk about New York. We talk about acting. There's so many great little Easter eggs and tidbits and tips from the man himself, Dev Johnson. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Dev Johnson and Vance Henderson.
You know what looks different? There's a moon tower on the corner. About 50 feet or 100 feet from where we are.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about. And they're actually, this morning as we were coming back from breakfast, we saw them adding the power cables to it.
Yeah.
So they're going to turn it on tonight for the first time. And I've never seen one lit up, so I'm really excited about this.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Folklore goes, because there's some other parts in West Austin, that they were initially installed because there was a serial killer. Is that a true?
I had just heard this from Travis Tober. He just told me that story, and I was like, wow, that's interesting.
And then there's Days of Confused.
And then there's also that reference, yeah.
And they're climbing up. So,
which I didn't actually put together until somebody pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I hadn't seen the movie in a while, and I forgot about that term or that phrase or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. So, of course, I stole it and put it in an Instagram story.
I mean, it's cool, man. It is yet another indication that Austin is changing profoundly.
Yes.
So this year over last year, probably all new faces at the level of
some new faces in the competition. Some people that returned from last year, which is really cool to see them come back. That they're interested again in being involved in this tour with us, in this competition with Monkey Shoulder, and they came out to see myself and Ezra. And unfortunately, John Lemaire is not here. He took ill right before the trip, so we're missing integral part of our team. Sure. But Vance is stepping up. We got Vance this year, which is great.
He's a domineering force.
Absolutely. Great showman.
Physically. Absolutely a great showman. Are you guys more like Motley Crue, or are you more like the Beatles?
Ooh. I mean, I think we're probably a mixture of both. When we're like the Beatles, when we're like in the competition, and when we're out at the bars and stuff, when nobody's looking, we're more like Motley Crue, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. Certainly a Motley Crue with vast backgrounds. Yeah. Vast creative differences. It's a lovely group. And we'll talk more about the Ultimate Bartending Championship here shortly. But
sure.
I tied all this stuff together. I just had finished Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Binged through this whole thing. One of the greatest TV comedies of all time, in my opinion. Finished The Office. All these greats.
Yes.
So someone said, you should watch Next. You're an Aaron Sorkin fan, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm an Aaron Sorkin fan.
Oh, man. Here we go.
I started watching The West Wing. And I started falling in love all over again with Martin Sheen.
Great show, by the way.
Great show, great writing. Aaron Sorkin really hitting his stride in terms of having the space to really explore story and stuff. Well, it turns out that there's not a lot about your bartending career necessarily. Obviously, there's two main chapters, one in Venice and then IDEO in New York.
Yes.
But there's this undercurrent of creativity and IMDb profiles of July 19th, 5'9", Dev Johnson. So, was that the big time? Your part on the West Wing.
That part was probably the biggest time part I ever had.
Yeah.
In that side career, or that very small chapter in my life. And it felt great. It was a lot of fun to do. I get to hang with Martin and those guys. And
no way.
Yeah, it was really cool. Also, the really interesting part about doing that role was that it was kind of like a double role in the episode. So I was playing. It related to another side story in the episode, in that particular episode, and I was playing the character, the Secretary of State character. I was playing him while he was as a pilot in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So it was more like a flashback sequence for him, while a current similar type of episode was happening with the Navy SEALs that they were dropping in. I think it was Navy SEALs. They were dropping into an event at the same time. So I think it brought back those memories for him.
Yeah.
And so I got to play him in the flashback. And so when I arrived on set, like all the main characters in the show all came up and looked at me and was like, "Oh, who's playing? You know, who's the guy playing him as a young guy?"
Man.
And it was really cool. I got to meet all of them, and they were all very, very accommodating, very nice people.
Man, Martin Sheen, you know, I never thought I'd be talking about Martin Sheen, but he still loves up. He's a devout Catholic, but still fights for personal rights and like very outspoken about things. It's lovely to hear like they embraced you as part of that cast, you know.
They did. It was really warm. I was terrified, honestly. I was terrified.
I have no idea.
I've always had a lot of respect for Martin Sheen as a performer, you know.
Still to this day.
And yes, still to this day.
Amazing. So many of the folks in this hospitality industry, again, very rich backgrounds, a motley crew on the whole, if you will. Some of us are musicians, some of us are playwrights, some of us are actors.
Yeah.
So for you, when you were working, was the acting always the main goal for you? Is that why you stayed in LA and you wanted to really make something in that space?
Well, LA is my hometown.
Okay, so you're born and raised.
Born and raised in Los Angeles. Cool. I've moved quite a bit all around the city and other places, so I'm not from any particular neighborhood. But I was born in Westwood and pretty much like lived on the west side the majority of my time in Los Angeles. And ever since I was a kid, I started acting. I got picked I was like in line somewhere and a manager came by and was like, "Oh my God, you're like, you know, whatever. I want to see if I can manage you and get into this, you know." And I'm like, "Sounds great. Let's give it a try."
Sure.
So, you know, I had a lot of bumps along the road. I stopped for a while in my teens. And that was pretty much the thing I thought that I was going to be doing with my life.
Yeah.
And I really didn't plan on, well, my vision of that wasn't about necessarily being like famous or anything like that. It was more about living a certain type of lifestyle and doing something creative that I really enjoyed doing and being able to live more of a creative lifestyle.
So we could talk about creative lifestyles.
Sure.
Your folks, were they in the industry at all?
No,
kind of just doing their thing.
They do their own thing. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah,
like I really enjoyed being on stage and all that. And part of the reason I kind of left that side of my life was that I really got tired of the business side of it.
Yeah,
you know, like getting the headshots and all the those kinds of things. The part that you really need to be doing if you want to be successful at it,
which is not the artistic part.
The artistic part, exactly. And that's the part that I kind of like shied away from. And so that was part of the reason why I let that part go in my life. And chasing that dream again became tiresome.
Yeah.
And I realized that I could still live a creative life, you know, and still be creative in many other ways and not have to chase down this thing that, you know, millions of other people are chasing down in the world.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because the last time I talked about acting was with Vance. Last year he's sitting next to me and we'll talk to me here shortly. But I asked him the same question I'd ask you. But so as an actor that someone is pursuing this actually out there in movies, in TV, who was influencing you as an actor, whether it was when you were a kid or someone that's old school or a contemporary?
Well, I had a lot of influences. I wouldn't say anybody in particular.
Yeah.
There were people that I imagined I wanted my career to be on the similar kind of track.
Right.
You know? But it wasn't any actors or writers in particular. I enjoy all the movies from all the different genres.
Yeah.
I would go through phases. I would watch like tons of like black and white movies, you know, Casablanca and those kinds of things from Here to Eternity.
John Huston stuff, the old film noir stuff.
Yeah, that stuff too.
Yeah.
There was a phase where I was doing that. There was a phase where I'd only watch like serious, emotional, heavy movies, you know, and all this stuff, and like. And then when it's funny that when I kind of let that act like chasing the acting go, I started just watching like really cheesy movies, like nothing that's too heavy, and like I just wanted to keep it light and easy, and that's kind of what I've been doing, you know.
But it's that's a balance though, right? Because you got to have that pensive, dark nature while also being outside and kind of ebullient and effusive and stuff.
Yeah.
So to guide, typically, you know, being in the hospitality industry, it's either pays your way through school.
Right.
It pays your way through acting or music. And did you hop into the industry because you wanted to, or just like it's a good gig?
It's a mixture of both, circumstantial and knowing that it'd be a good place for me to be if I wanted to have the ability to do other things with my life.
Yeah.
Put me through school as well. The small amount of school that I went to, I never got a degree.
Yeah.
And when I approached school, university type school, I approached it where I was just going to learn what I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And I know there's some structure you have to have, so you have to have your general education classes, et cetera, et cetera.
Business math. Ugh.
Right, that kind of stuff. And I did those as well, but I really just wanted to learn about things. So I learned about astronomy. I learned how to play the trumpet. I learned about music theory. I learned about all the things I thought were really interesting to me. And I also found things that became interesting to me that I didn't realize would be, like it's
I'm going to ask you, of course, for what?
I really got into, philosophy was what was my official minor.
Yeah.
And studying philosophy gave me really interesting insights into the world, how I think about the world, and all these other things, right?
Sure.
Relating to spirituality, relating to just the connection of everything in the world.
Absolutely.
So I became this layman theorist in a way. So I've read really intense books that mathematically I don't understand, but the theory part I really enjoy reading about.
Like Descartes and stuff?
I've read some Descartes, Nietzsche, and that, but I also read this really interesting book called The Tao of Physics, which was it came out in the 70s, written by an Indian physicist.
Uh-huh.
And he grew up in India with Eastern philosophy, or Eastern thought, Eastern spirituality, and in this book, he makes a comparison between Eastern philosophy, Eastern spiritual thought, right, meditation and those things, and the ideas that they came to about the world, about the universe. Mm-hmm. And he compared those two and showed that Western science is actually reaching the same point when it comes to quantum mechanics and quantum physics. So
no way.
And this is good, and please forgive me, any scientists out there who know how to talk about this better than I do.
No, this is
please
good.
forgive me, but
we're all scientists here.
In a way, yeah, absolutely. But in my understanding of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, is that nothing's really there until you can't see it until you can't prove that it's there until you actually see it. Right. So it's not actually there until you see it, which relates to the idea in Eastern philosophy and Eastern spirituality that we create what we're seeing. So those two things kind of come together, like Western science and Eastern philosophy. In this book, he's showing how they kind of reach the same conclusions.
Interesting.
Which I thought was very interesting.
So how do you decide then, oh man, I never thought I'd be talking about this, but this whole hologram thing, that life is merely just a hologram that's a construct of your mentality?
Yeah, it's interesting. And the other thing that really caught my mind when I was studying philosophy was that everything that we've figured out in this world, and with science, with maybe, with astrophysics and how we think the universe is created, is all based on one thing. And that one thing always seems to be an assumption. So everything we're doing,
I like that was a foregone conclusion about what that assumption is.
Right. And so even in natural philosophy, even Isaac Newton was doing this. When this is philosophy back then, what physics was called natural philosophy back then, but everything that they would start with was an assumption, and then they'd create, all these different things. So we assume the Big Bang happened, so we can, from that point, from this assumption, we can create math that adds up to that.
You're absolutely
explains what
right.
we have right now.
We create a narrative based on the conclusion we create, instead of just working the process and then getting and achieving that truth at the end of it. Yeah.
Right, and the fact of the matter is, we can't see how the universe started. They can't see past this one, I think it's 13 billion years ago or something like that. When they look back in time that way through radio telescopes and stuff like that, they hit this wall of fuzz where they just can't get past.
Yeah.
That's where we're at now. And so the assumption that the Big Bang is there, we can't prove the Big Bang, but we can assume the Big Bang is proven by all the math and all the theory that we've created based on that assumption. Right?
Inference, right?
Yes, inference, exactly.
So did this shape the way that you kind of... Because what ends up happening is that you read something that's truly touching like that changes your paradigm and perhaps problem solving.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, and it interferes with your personal relationships, I found, but you no longer make assumptions about stuff. You're like, let's work through this instead of you just telling me this is how it is, and then you question everything. Yeah,
that part of that as well, but it took less pressure off me and thinking that this is the absolute only way.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And that opened my mind up in a lot of ways to the possibilities of what a person can create with their life.
That's
right. So
the rails are off.
Yeah. So that was really helpful for me in my world.
That's a great sentiment. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Normally, it shaves it down and creates to be more myopic. But you're saying, no, this opened everything up.
It opened everything up because then it's like, okay, well, if that's just based on assumption, then it's what we believe, but it's not necessarily true.
Wow.
Right? And true is usually a perspective anyway.
Sure. Did it give you a clearer sense of maybe who you are in this universe?
In some ways, it did. In some ways, it took, like I said before, it took the pressure off of me in terms of like, oh, I have to be doing this, or I have to be doing that, or this is the only way to do this. It opened that up for me more than anything else, you know.
I have a problem with trying to do too much, to try to establish. And my wife and I, we're not going to have kids. We made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Passionate about that.
Okay.
Someone brought it to my attention last week that says, well, what do you keep trying to achieve? You don't have kids, and so I'm like, I don't know. And they go, you're just trying to have a legacy that outlives your death. Right? And that's kind of crazy. Do you get, in terms of ambition and projects and success, do you take that into consideration at all, that you also want to have a legacy that you leave?
Sometimes, you know, I think every human being, I assume every human being has this part of them that wants to leave their print on the world, on history, and so on and so forth. That's never necessarily been the main focus of what I like to do, what I'm doing with my life. I usually have a pretty short-term vision of what's happening in my life, and I'm not really sure why, but I do, and I try to keep it as simple as I can. Like, even when I was approaching acting, in the same way that I approach what I do now, tending bar and doing seminars for people and stuff like that, which still to this day, if I actually think about it, I'm still mind blown that I'm actually people want to hear what I have to say about this stuff to begin with. But really, my ultimate goal when it comes to like this or anything that I do, anything that I plan to do in the future, is that I want to be good at what I do. I want to be respected by my peers and whatever field that is, but for what I do. And I don't necessarily need to be famous or extremely rich or any of those things. But really, it's more about having respect and being able to stand alongside people that I respect.
Yeah.
You know,
people trusting you and people. I'm really into the people respecting me thing. Now, but you don't work for that. You just do it by example.
You have to just do things, and then that's going to fall into place.
Right.
I think.
I think so too.
And it's not like, oh, you need to respect me or anything like that. It's just that. It's that people that I look up to, if they can somehow see value in what I'm doing, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, and that's really, in essence, one of the huge facets to this community.
Yeah.
The bartending community, hospitality, brands. Mm-hmm. Being behind the bar in Venice, and it's Chaya, is that what it's called?
It was Chaya Venice. Yeah, it's still there. It's
still there
since
look.
95.
The menu looks great.
It is. Dude, the food
they
is
open
really
at 5:30. If I guess we can get to a flight out there.
Get sushi happy hour and all that. Yeah.
Did you find that you liked people too? Because acting can often be a solemn and very isolating.
Mm-hmm.
But you being in front of people behind the bar, did you enjoy those interactions too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoy the interactions most of the time with people behind the bar. I like making people happy in general. That's kind of the way I've always been in my life. I like to make people smile. I like to have a lighter, light feeling. I'm not always light, but I like to try to help people have a good time, help them smile. I'm trying to crack jokes all the time. Usually not that well, but I do my
Welcome
best.
to my world. Or I'm joining your world. Right. Dad jokes all over the fucking place.
And it's funny that when I was tending bar and acting at the same time, I kind of realized that it's funny. I kind of fought, because I had started acting when I was young, I kind of fought in my mind being the cliche actor working in a restaurant acting, especially in Los Angeles, places. Sure. But over the course of working in the restaurants and finally getting behind the bar and engaging with people in that manner, it just really felt really natural and easy for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of found that I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed hunting down acting roles. Not that I enjoyed it more than acting and studying characters and stuff like that. But the
operational process, which you're talking about.
That I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And it just felt more natural. And then I also realized I could go anywhere in the world with the abilities as a bartender.
Sure.
Because everybody drinks all over the world.
And
that was a door that I kind of opened in my mind for me, that I was like, I could just do this and just do all the things I want to do anyway.
Yeah. Another lens of which kind of expands things open for you.
Yes.
Now this I like as a common theme here.
Yes.
Science and physiology, or rather physics themselves, opens up your mind about your place in the world. Mm-hmm. Bartending also does the same thing. I do have a question, as actors and people that are interacting with people in very truncated, fast, quick, bite-sized ways, is it always you that people are getting? Or do you also have to put on a role?
to interact with guests?
You mean when I'm behind the bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me, and it's also it's like a veil.
Yeah.
Right, because particularly at Employees Only, we talk a lot about being able to be in the situation and be out and be able to view it from the outside at the same time.
Sure.
That's what our mentors there try to teach us about, one aspect of what we do.
Yeah.
And so it is me, and I think it's very similar to acting.
Yeah.
It's me, but I'm also the bartender, and I'm also the host.
Yeah.
All those things are tied together. So it's not Dev completely. It's
right.
Dev the host, the Dev and sometimes the entertainer, to engage with people across the bar. And so sometimes it's that. So it's usually a little bit of a veil between myself and the bartender persona.
Well, you have to too. I feel like if you did you ever listen to Smashing Pumpkins?
Yes.
Of course, right?
Not too deeply, not too much, but I'm familiar.
But enough, right? Yeah. Well, they're coming. They're actually having a reunion tour. Everybody's back together. They're playing here in Austin, which is going to be really exciting. But Billy Corgan, after Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, kind of their biggest records, right? He said, "I've opened up too much. I'm going to reel it back now. I have to put that veil up." And then you have those subsequent records that come out. I feel like that keeps us safe. And do bartenders have to do that, to not dive too much, to not connect too much with the people? That can be quite sad sometimes.
I think that, I don't know if all bartenders have to.
Yeah.
For myself, I find that it's better for me to kind of keep that space between those two things.
Sure.
Because I have gone beyond that space and really really become friends with my guests and stuff like that. But that starts to remove the feeling, starts to remove the interaction that's supposed to happen when a guest comes to a bar.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is it's still business, right? And as bartenders, we're kind of illusionists and magicians in the way, because yes, we all understand that it's business, but we also want people to feel at home. We also want people to feel like it's not that way.
Right.
So I think finding that balance is really important.
Yeah, I think so too.
Somebody else I respect in the bar business talks about not getting too close to your guests, because you want them to feel like a guest rather than feeling like, oh, we're just hanging out.
Right. There is a dynamic. There is a role there.
Yes.
And that's hard for me on the other side sometimes when I don't have water anymore. And I almost feel like bad about asking this, a mate of mine, right? Like, I need some more water.
Like it's your friend, right?
Yeah, you're right. So
you shouldn't feel that way.
I shouldn't, right? Because it's a job, and I would do the same thing, of course.
Absolutely.
I worked retail for a long-ass time. I understand how it goes. But suffice to say, but it's an interesting dynamic, and it becomes nebulous sometimes.
It can be a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
Because there are people that you meet across the bar, guests of yours, that you really engage with, and that you could be friends with.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could go hang out with them or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's tricky. That's a tricky dynamic.
Absolutely.
That for me, I have to find that balance between those two things. Otherwise, parts of my personality, maybe my mood starts to come across when it shouldn't. My own personal mood.
Right.
And so then I'm like being there. Then I'm there I'm thinking in myself and thinking in my head when I really need to be there for the guest.
Sure.
It's
a selfless thing, and sometimes we can get too.
It can be a little
involved.
tricky.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the other massive chapter, you spent chapter 1, if you will, or act 2. I'll call it act 2.
Sure. Why not? Yeah.
Or maybe first act, depending how you look at it, right? But you spent your whole life pursuing a career that you didn't abandon, but you built up a social network. You built up some cachet as a person behind the bar with a reputation.
Yes.
How hard was it to leave LA to go to New York in 2006, I think?
2006, I moved to New York City. It wasn't difficult to make the move. It was difficult to let go of being in LA and let go of that life.
Right.
In some ways, because I'm pretty stubborn. Like I worked at Chai Venice for 11 years.
Wow.
Right. And
unheard of if you think about it.
Really, and it's very unusual in restaurants and bars. So I started there as a busboy. My first day was actually April 1st, April Fool's Day, 1995,
was it?
1995, yeah. And they opened in 93, my mistake. Yeah.
Wow.
And I worked my first day for free. And I kind of look back on that date as like kind of the universe's joke on me, or, April Fool's Day on me. Because like when I first approached it, I was like, I'm not going to be doing this when I'm 40. I was bartending with guys that were 40, and I'm like, man, there's no way I'm going to be bartending when I'm 40. And, lo and behold, here I am 20-something years later, and I'm behind the bar. And I feel great about it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like perspective changes over time. So 11 years at Chai of Venice. I was definitely time for me to go. It's definitely time for me just to make a change in my life.
Sure.
And so like I said before, like it was difficult to let go, but once I had made that decision, I was out.
Easy.
I was
gone. You dedicate yourself to something and you do it.
Yeah.
So it took 2 years, it looks like, before you hopped onto the EO
right.
crew?
So I had bounced around quite a bit. So going from a place like Chai, where I was there for 11 years, one job,
I
had about 10 jobs in the course of those 2 years in New York City,
Man.
which was really trippy.
And it's hard. That's got to feel unnatural, maybe it's too strong of a word, but a little bit like against your nature, perhaps?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things I disliked so much about acting, which was like going on auditions and those things, I had to do in New York. I had to take resumes and like go and ask for jobs, and it's silly in my mind. I know it's kind of silly, but in my mind, I always felt like I was begging, and that's one thing I don't ever want to do. I don't like doing, you know. And there's been times in my life when I've had to.
Sure. But
it's something that I try to avoid, and it's just a feeling that I put on myself more than anything else, you know. And so, like, for instance, one of the restaurants I applied for in New York, I walked in and I'm like, yeah, this really probably isn't the place for me, you know, whatever. So I'm just going to fill this thing out. I'm here. I'm going to fill out the questionnaire they have and turn my resume in. And one of the questions was, you know, is the guest always right? And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to answer this one. They're never going to hire me, you know, and I can just move on my way. And it's not really going to be my fault.
You tank it on purpose.
Like, right.
I love it.
So I answered it like, well, no, the guest isn't always right. And sometimes the guest needs to hear when they're wrong. And I'm thinking, okay, they're never going to hire me now, right? Because they don't want to hear they don't want to hear somebody that's coming to work for them have that attitude about it. And I'm like, I'm going to put that down on purpose. No, lo and behold, like 2 days later, they called me and they're like, hey, we got a position for you. And I'm like, oh man,
it never works with jury duty either, by the way.
No, I haven't tried yet. I need to take care of that actually. New York City's mad at me right now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You're not here. I don't even know where you are right now, so they can't track you.
No.
There's no way.
Well, no, yeah.
I'll just wait till after the summer.
No, the GPS on my phone never gives me up.
See? Good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Or the pizza shots after midnight down 6th Street, right? Either way.
Yeah.
What was that first introduction into EO like?
So I had visited Employees Only a couple times. So working at another bar called the Merc Bar, which is actually kind of a staple in Soho. It was on Mercer between Prince and Houston, and it had been there for 20-something years. And a friend of mine that I knew from LA was managing it, so that's how I got the position there.
Yeah.
And I was there for about a year. And so I had visited Employees Only a couple times because some of the guys that worked there knew the guys from Employees Only or had worked with those guys before they opened EO.
Right.
And when they were working at Schiller's or Pravda, you know, the other places they had worked. And so I'd been there a couple times. It was cool. And I thought it was a good spot. The vibe was always good. It was always packed. Everybody looked like they're having a great time. And that's really, when it came to bartending, that's really the kind of place I wanted to be in. I wanted to be in a club because, you know, easy. 3 nights a week, you're making like, you know, lots and lots of money.
Sure.
And
getting those
shorter
numbers,
hours,
right?
you know, but I'm not 6 foot, you know, I'm not a model. You know what I mean?
But
I'm not a woman. And like,
I know, but sometimes it can work for us.
Sometimes it can, yeah. Like there was some guys that I know now who worked at places like Bed and Home, you know, and I just didn't have the knowledge they had yet about spirits. And because I never thought it was going to be something that I needed to know. I just was like, I'll just bang drinks out and, you know, and I'll have something else going on in my life at some point. So I started working at Employees Only, and it's funny, I don't think I realized what Employees Only was when I first started working there. And I wasn't fully aware of this renaissance that was happening in cocktails. You know, I had heard like maybe 4 or 5 years earlier, like somebody came and asked me in LA, are you a mixologist? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, no, I'm a bartender. And so over the course of the first like 8 or 9 months, 6 months of working at EO, starting at the bottom there, you know.
Because they have like the apprentice program. Is that how they do it there?
Yes, we had the apprenticeship program. So I started at the bottom, even after 10 years of working behind the bar, which, you know, it makes sense because they're training you to work in the culture and the style that they would like us to work in there. So over the course of those first 6 or 8 months, I just started noticing things like a guest would come in, like, I came all the way from Berlin just to see this bar. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that's great. But in my head, I'm like, that's fucking crazy. What's going on here, you know?
Yeah.
And in the trainings that we had, I was learning stuff and reading books, and it made tending bar and what we do behind the bar viable for me in the sense that now I have an intellectual way to approach it as well. I'm learning some things. I always like to learn. I like to learn about all kinds of different things. You know, like I do a little bit of a lot of things, and I kind of piece things together in my mind, and you know, and so it re-inspired me in a way in my life, and being at Employees Only in that situation and learning from these guys, it made me kind of realize, like, oh, wow, you know what? I can actually do this for a living, have respect for myself, respect what I'm doing. And it's not just about, like, making drinks make people drunk. There's actually, like, thought behind all this.
Absolutely.
You know? There's a the creative aspect to it. And there's all this
culturally
history to it
relevant.
that I didn't have any idea about. And that became, for me, that was really the thing that fired me up about doing it, about being the bartender I am today, you know.
And still there.
And still there.
Kicking out the jams.
Well, I'm not one to, like, leave places,
This is fair.
Which should probably, because you're not well, and that I've helped build, and those kind of things.
Right.
You know,
but you're not married, right?
No, not married.
Which surprises me then, in that case, because you would think that, he's convinced himself over here.
Yeah, you know, I think I have less of a fear of commitment to work than I do to relationships. Maybe, I don't know.
You gotta pick one of them, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad was married to his work for a long time.
Yeah. And the other thing about employees only was that I was about 2 weeks away. I had been fired from the Merc Bar because, in true New York fashion, a new manager came in, wanted to hire his buddies that he knew, and so it was it. You know, that's kind of how that New York doesn't quite work that way as much anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was very much like that. It was like you could have a job one day and the next day it's gone, especially in the restaurant industry.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like the Trump administration. I mean, not to get political, but just logistically, it's the same thing.
Logistically, for sure. And
Nutrition, man.
I was about 2 weeks away from moving out of New York, just kind of giving up on New York and just thinking, well, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I just need to go back to Los Angeles, go to UCLA, get a degree in history or something, and become a professor, you know, because history is another thing that I really, really enjoy learning about and stuff like that. So, like, and studying. And so that's pretty much where my head was at. I was like, okay, I'm going to go on this interview at EO, and, you know, if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to pack my bags and move back to LA. I'm going to go back, you know. And I figured 2 years was a good enough time. I had friends that moved out for like 6 months and took their tail between their legs and headed back.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not going to be me. And I really didn't want to go back without bringing something back or having something. So I gave myself first a year. I was like, okay, I'll give it another year.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, 2 years. You know, I'm 33 now, and I really need to figure out what I'm going to be doing with my life, you know, if I want to have a different life than I'm having now. So, so I ended up getting the job there. You know?
Serendipity.
And serendipity completely.
Wow.
Like, one of the door guy at the Merc Bar, he was also the door guy at Employees Only. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the best guys at the door I've ever known to work with, that I've ever worked with. Like, could see people down the block and just know what state of mind they're in. It was a trip. It was like almost magical watching him work at the door. It's a trip. Anyway, so he introduced me to the guys at Employees Only. I went on my interview, you know, and they called me in. The space opened up like a week later. They called me in. I started working with them, and here we are, 10 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a magical thing.
Yeah.
You're almost Zen-like Japanese-esque level of patience and mastery.
I wish that was actually true. But I'm glad it appears that way sometimes.
Fooled me. It was pretty... No.
Yeah.
This commitment to things, it seems in vast contrast to a lot of what is this term startender that's kind of in this industry.
Yes.
How do you have a bit of advice for folks that maybe are 20 years younger than you that are really chomping at the bit to do everything as quickly as possible? What would you tell them?
Wow, it's tricky. It's a different game than it was when I got in. Like when I started bartending, people weren't doing this stuff that I knew of, at least.
Right.
You know? And if it was happening far and few between, and probably mostly in Europe.
Sure.
You know, where they kind of kept the they held the flag for us.
Yeah.
You know, after Prohibition, you know, everything got really weird in the United States when it came to cocktails, like horrible ingredients after World War II, like all these things, and Europe kind of held the banner for cocktails in a lot of ways. So in the United States, wasn't happening. But now I would say there's all these opportunities, and I see a lot of young bartenders get in it because they're like, oh, I want to be a famous bartender now,
right?
You know, or whatever. And I mean, that's almost the same as like trying to get into acting. You know, maybe on a smaller scale.
You're absolutely right.
But
you just want notoriety for notoriety's sake, but the work isn't really worth it to you.
Right.
Not you personally.
No, I know. I know what you mean. And I see a lot of young bartenders bouncing around and trying to learn this. And the thing about this is that there's a couple of aspects. Like your palate takes time to train. It takes time. Like you're not going to have a great palate in 1 year.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of it. I mean, the more you practice, absolutely, the better your palate's going to be. But it takes time to develop that. You know, it really does. And so that's one of the things I find young bartenders are struggling with, whether they realize it or not, is a palate.
Yes.
And really being able to taste intricacies in cocktails and stuff like that. And that's not true for everybody, obviously.
Yeah.
I also find that they're bouncing around a lot. They want to be in the hot bar. They want to be in the cool bar. And so, like, people will see, and I'm not sure why, but I imagine it's because people will see them in the new hot bar and you know, they're part of that whole scene and they're going to get seen and all this stuff. And
right.
The reality is, for me at least, grinding, you know, believe it or not, you know, the days that you're behind the bar that you're at is really where you're going to learn all the things you need to learn about being behind a bar and working in hospitality. And I think that part gets lost in the mix when it comes to making this amazing cocktail.
No,
you know,
you're totally
and known
right.
for this amazing cocktail. I want to have a cocktail name, and like mine's going to be a modern classic, you know, or whatever. And
I was walking to work, which is about a mile from my house. I was walking to work every day, and I walked through this neighborhood, and I would just do it all the time, and I would just kind of keep my head down and like, oh, I'm just going to work. I kept focusing on that. But then one day I stepped back and said, you know, I'm just going to like enjoy this neighborhood. It's kind of a pretty neighborhood. There was this beautiful blue house I'd never noticed before. It's about as blue as this bench over here, bright blue.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
And all it took was me just pull my head up, right? And then you finally get to see this minutia and this stuff that was really always part of the journey instead of just focused on the destination.
Right.
You know? And so that, to your point, you never know when that's going to surface.
Right. The longer you're in one place, the more details you're going to see, and the more practice you're going to get in the same place. So, like, I'm not saying don't expand. I'm not saying don't learn about other things, but stick with one place for a while and kind of settle into that so that you can develop the skills that you want to develop along the way. And you can be in a place that doesn't get any necessarily notoriety, because it's not really about that. It's about developing your skills as a host behind the bar, you know? And so if you're bouncing around constantly thinking about, oh, I need to see, people need to see this, then you're going to miss the point.
Absolutely.
You know? You're missing the details along that journey. And then it's very cliche now, like say it's about the journey, not the destination. You know,
but it is.
It's really about both.
Yeah, you're right.
Time,
well, it's a nice. Everything's about balance, of course.
Right.
Drinking and working out, like the journey, the deliverable. It's all mixed together.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with William Grant & Sons and Monkey Shoulder?
Oh man, that's it's tricky. A lot of things that happen, I don't really realize how they happen. They just kind of start happening.
Yeah.
And over the course of the years of being an employees only, I became friends with the former U.S. ambassador for Hendrix, Jim Ryan, who was already a friend of the house to begin with. And we kind of clicked. When I became bar manager at EO, I really didn't know that many people within our industry in that way. And I went to an event once, and he was there. I already knew him. And he was there, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to go to this thing next, so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, I've never met that person before. He's like, you know what, man, come with me. I'm going to introduce you to some people.
Yeah.
So he kind of like helped me do that. And that was the beginning of my relationship with William Grant & Sons through Jim Ryan.
Yeah.
And then I would do work for him. I'd do events, or I'd make cocktails for him, for Hendrix and stuff like that. And then, then of course I met Charlotte Voisey and the other people involved in William Grant. And Seb Dibrame came over from Australia to be the ambassador to take Jim Ryan's place on Hendrix. And I'm not sure the details of how he switched over to Monkey Shoulder. And so Seb and I had become friends at Tails one year. Jim was like, this is Seb, he's taking my place, and he's awesome, look out for him. And I'm like, done.
Best hair in the business.
Best hair, or worst hair in the business, depending on how you look at it.
If you're in One Direction
but,
fan,
I don't want to, so I think his wife does his hair, and I don't.
She does.
No offense. I'm really just teasing Seb more than anything else.
Oh, it's Gadu. Yeah. The Frenchies, man.
She's amazing. We got to hang out last year on the tour in Chicago. And
cool.
Man, so cool. Both of them.
They're lovely, lovely folks.
And so that's kind of, it's kind of happens like little pieces along the way, And I think when a bartender, and this kind of ties back into what I was saying about staying in one place for a while, it shows consistency. And people that want to work with you are going to want to work with somebody that's consistent.
Right.
They can, in a way, it's a sense of trust,
Which is paramount for a big brand.
Absolutely.
Big money means I got to put you out on the company's dime. Don't screw it up.
Right.
Be responsible. Be a role model.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, it's funny, too. We talk about if you just keep looking at the destination, if you keep hopping around, you're going to miss those small conversations.
Definitely. You're going to miss the opportunity. And then people in the brand, they're going to notice that you're bouncing around, too.
Yes.
And it's not, it's not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but if it's working for you, it's working for you.
Sure.
That's all that matters.
You date around. I mean, that in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah. But it's really more important to develop the different techniques than it is developing your resume in that way with all these different places. I think so. Yeah. But like not every path is the same for everybody. So,
It is, and I like that. And the pleasure, the life-changing thing for me is getting to hear this through your voice and getting to hear this through Seb's voice.
Thanks.
And Vance as well, you know, and this inspires me. And I hope, if anything, that, you know, you put your head down and you worked for it, that people can listen to that and say, okay, I'm willing to do that too. Because there's a hell of a lot of people that respect you. I mean, lots of people showing up to these 2 days.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I'm flabbergasted, but also very grateful for it. You know? And I get to work with like two of my best friends in this industry, and I get to travel with them all around the country, and it's been really fun.
That's so cool.
And you know, eternally grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this.
So the 2-day, so it's the Ultimate Bartending Championship, right? Which sounds like super tough and like Charles Bronson gritty kind of thing, right? Like people pitted at each other in an octagon kind of shit. But
we should get an octagon for the next city, dude. Cage match.
Yes, like Penitentiary. Did you ever see that movie from the 80s? Yes. Brawl, prison brawls, dude. Oh man. But Monday was the educational portion. You guys basically saying we've done a lot of stuff. We've really put in a lot of time. Here are some best practices. Is that ultimately what it is? In terms, there's also some quizzes too, right?
There's on the second day during the actual competition, there's a quiz. And there's the mixiotic table, which Dean Callan created, which is amazing. I almost swore on.
Oh yeah, mixiotic. That's clever. I saw that.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I think it's really cool. In the first day, which we didn't have necessarily last year. First day last year was a like a round robin type of conversation with myself and the other three judges, Chris Hanna, John Lamera, and Ezra Starr. And we were asked questions by Seb, and we'd answer questions, and then people from the audience could ask questions, which was great. It was a little loose, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. But then what we found was during the actual competition, people were kind of flailing sometimes, particularly in the speed round. And of course, we want to make it a good experience for the people coming to compete, and want to make it interesting for them, and it should be a learning experience as well. So we decided that we would try to do something this year on the first day where it'd be more like an academy, like what we're calling it, the academy. So that they can actually come to the competition and compete against each other, but also learn about things that they not necessarily learn from the people they're working with, or from other parts of the world, right? Like how to create a menu, how to build a menu that's very balanced, that expresses the creativity the bar itself has, and finds that middle place where the guests can enjoy it as well.
Right. So giving them more skills, and ultimately.
Right. Yeah. Giving them more tools.
Mentoring.
More skills, as they say, to pay the bills. Right. And so that's been fun, and I think it's shown in today's competition. I thought people showed up and they were more excited. And I think that learning is really the ultimate goal for all the things that we're doing when it comes to competitions and stuff like that.
And a proclivity towards wanting to be a professor at some point. This, in a sense, is a way for you to teach a class.
Exactly. And I really enjoy teaching. Every time I teach, I learn something new as well. But I really enjoy teaching, even though sometimes I don't feel like anybody needs to hear what I have to say.
They just listen though anyway.
But they do anyway. Yeah, they just they patronize me a bit. It's cool.
Of course, spitball now and again.
Right. But it was a lot of fun because it's when I did my portion of the academy, which is a small 1 hour set on round building and how to approach rounds when you're being called at from the guest or you're going to serve a ticket. What we found last year was that in the speed round, a lot of bartenders weren't getting past that. They were getting disqualified because they ran out of time, or they couldn't finish all the drinks, whatever. And I was like, okay. When I first came up, the first thing I learned how to do was work service bar and learn how to read a ticket, or read an order from a guest, because that's the only way you could be fast, and how to categorize and organize that order. And it seemed like the younger kids weren't really getting that taught to them or getting that experience, because it's the nature of what's happening now in the bar industry, mixology and all that stuff. They get their heads down and they're working on one drink at a time, and I've never worked that way. And if you want to make money, you got to be fast, and that's the place I've always worked in. You have to
juggle,
be fast,
man.
Be good, and get it done. And so I thought we all kind of came to the conclusion they would talk about things that they're really good at, and this is one of my strengths, or I feel like it's one of my strengths in relationship to the team that we're part of, the judging team. And we did kind of a small 15-minute one in San Diego, our last city last year. And the next day, when the competitors came in, I'd say 90% of the competitors did well in the speed round, whereas the other cities, maybe 1/3 were doing well. And so we're like, yeah, let's apply this to next year. So I was able to do it, and everybody showed up today to compete, and everybody, I'd say 98% of the people like finished the round, garnishes and everything, and it was really cool to see.
Oh, that's great.
Really cool to see.
So this education, this curriculum, in a sense, how long does it from start to finish? How many cities does it incorporate?
This year we're doing 5 cities. So we're doing Austin. The next one is Denver. Then we do Seattle, Tampa, then Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back to home.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, right?
It's going to be a trip to be back there in this regard. Because usually when I go back and visit, hasn't anything to do with my bartending.
Right.
I tend to stay away from the bars. I visit my family. I visit my friends. I go and do those things. And so it's going to be a trip to go back there and kind of come back home in a way. And nobody there knows who I am from LA, from being in Los Angeles, And there's no reason why they should.
It's nice, though.
But it's going to be cool to go back and see, really, I kind of know what's going on in the scene there. And, to some degree, I have a lot of friends that work in Los Angeles. But it's going to be great to see, see how that city's changed and really look at it. Because like I said, when I go back and visit, I don't tend to visit the cocktail bars. Because I'm not there for work. I'm there to see my friends, my old friends, and that kind of thing.
It's great. I mean, you're on the road, so you're touring. You're a touring actor, professor. Honestly, this is a role that people would love to fill. As Vance is nodding his head, yep, this is what I said. He's not. I got the brilliant hat on, but I'm sure eventually he'll have a brilliant hat on here. Yeah. So I got 2 questions left for you, and then we'll talk about Monkey Shoulder's involvement, the recent kind of shift in leadership, if you will, from Seb to Vance. We'll talk in a second. But you're at any bar in the world, and you can enjoy any cocktail, doesn't matter what, with it, and sit there and have a sip and a conversation with anybody living or deceased.
Oh, wow.
That's an actor.
Okay.
Who might you love to just sit there and wax poetic with and have a conversation?
Man, that's tough.
Of course,
it's a tough one, man.
I'm not letting you get off that easy.
Oh. Well, it'd probably be drinking a Negroni or a Manhattan or a shot of tequila, honestly. I love making cocktails.
Sure.
And I like drinking cocktails, but I tend to stay with the classics.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. Okay, so who would it be? Wow. I'm immediately thinking Humphrey Bogart right now.
Oh,
For some
man.
reason, or Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could handle a conversation with Marlon Brando, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it'd be pretty intense.
In light of other news that came up, he may be let's go hang out some more in my hotel room. So then you might put you in a position.
Yeah, maybe. But I think Humphrey Bogart, would be killer to sit and talk with. Just his he wasn't much of a character actor in any way. It was really kind of Humphrey Bogart, from what I can tell,
right?
In his performances, but it was just this ease and style and coolness and that I really liked. That I really like in his acting. So maybe Humphrey, maybe James Dean.
Oh.
Maybe. Man, that's a hard one.
I know. I was thinking not that no one asks me ever, right? Which is great. But Lee Marvin always comes to mind.
Lee Marvin would be pretty cool.
I would be real afraid after, but I think once we got on the same level, if I was still cognizant, it would be great to hang out with Lee Marvin. You know, these tough guys. Bogart's the same way, but just not an action star, but a very, very bold, stern, kind of austere-looking
definitely
dude.
A personality.
Yeah,
at the very
it's
least.
Amazing.
Tom Hardy would be another one.
Oh God, that'd be
the
great.
respect for what he does. He's a killer, man. Love the work he does.
What's the Ridley Scott?
Benicio del Toro would be another one. I think would be really fun to hang out with.
Man, see, this is a podcast on its own. Who would you drink with?
Right? Who would be the musician for you, though?
Oh man, that's
right.
Well,
Jimi Hendrix. It's so difficult.
I know Dave Bazan probably,
okay.
and is esoteric, but I know he can drink a bunch, and he's still very pretty insightful. He's not that much older than me, so it's all right.
All right, there you go.
So last question.
Sure.
There's this ornate monkey mixer that's been riding around Texas, and I can't wait to take another picture of it. It was at Nickel City the other night.
Mm-hmm.
What's next for you guys? What city are you visiting next, and what do you look to kind of give to the crowd, if you will?
The next city we visit is Denver.
Denver. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I haven't been to Denver in quite a long time, so I'm really excited to see the new bars that are there.
Yeah. American Bonded, Sean's new bar. Yeah.
Sean's new bar. I haven't visited any of Sean's bars, so I'm really excited to see both of them and see Sean too as well. And hang out with him. And Seb's going to be there.
Cool.
So because Seb's moving out to Denver, so Vance and Seb and I and the team all get to hang out.
No way.
I'm really looking forward to that.
No casualties, all right? Good.
Let's hope not. I don't think so. So Denver's the next city, and we want to try to, like, we're going to bring some information, and things going to happen, I think, in all these different cities. Each city is going to have has its own dynamic going on. And the bartenders are going to be strong in one sense and maybe not so strong in another sense. And so I think what's going to happen is we're going to bring the information we have to bring, and whatever they decide to take from that is really what they're going to decide to take.
Yeah.
Whatever they need to hear is what they're probably going to hear.
Sure.
I hope, at least,
Much like yourself, right? You never know which that nugget is until you see it, and like, then that's it.
Yes.
It changes the trajectory ever after.
Yeah. Because everybody's at a different level in their life and in their bartending, et cetera. So, they're going to hear what we're going to throw a bunch of stuff at them, and they're going to hear what they need to hear, hopefully.
What works for them.
Yes.
Well, Godspeed on the travels. It's
Thank
great
you.
to know that you're involved, and I presume we'll see you next year as well. We'll have to hang out a little bit more.
I hope so.
Now that I know that you're not one of those stuck-up actor types.
Even if I wanted to be, I don't think I could be,
I mean, it's hard to say. I've met some folks, but it was brilliant. I'm so glad you guys are in Austin. I'm glad that Ezra's back, and Vance and yourself. And, Godspeed on the tour. Tell Sean hey, and you're going to have a good time in Denver, man.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, man.
It was an absolute pleasure.
What a pleasure.
Thank you.
Sure.
So here we are again, Vance. Just the two of us, almost a year in the making.
Almost a year.
Yeah, dude, Time Out Awards last year.
Sure enough.
Yeah, you made me a brilliant Drambuie cocktail,
Yeah, that's when you made me a superstar.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, you know what? I wasn't thinking about Instagram heavily until you posted that picture. That was actually the reason I started an account. No shit.
I never forget. I never forget where it came from.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're the inspiration, man. It's good. Now, endlessly, people are telling me, stop fucking posting pictures now. So you might have actually unleashed Pandora's box of trouble.
Don't start none, won't be none.
So there was this recent announcement. You had the community bracing themselves. It's like, is Vance going to leave? Is Vance going to have a kid? Is he running for public office in D.C.? Because we need him now more than ever? Nope. Something greater than all of those things combined. So now you are the national ambassador that has usurped via mutiny. I'm kidding. Monkey Shoulder Blended Scotch.
That's it.
Our friend Seb used to be the guy.
Yeah.
He couldn't handle it. That's what I hear, right? He just couldn't. He's getting older.
I had to take him out, man. It was just getting weird watching from, the land of, Heather Honey. I was like, somebody's got to do something about this.
Somebody
guy.
tell him he can't do this anymore.
I couldn't understand anything he was saying, which was getting me. I was like, man, he's doing media. Like, what is he saying?
It's like, but they're just looking at him like he's so exotic. Obviously, we've got to listen to him.
It was the hair. It was the hair. And I felt, truly and honestly, I felt like the brand needed someone that was bald. Like,
sure.
Didn't need this, golden
distraction.
Locks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a visual distraction. We want to focus on the juice itself. Yeah. This beautiful blended scotch at 43% ABV. I love the profile of this stuff, and it's a nice evolution for you, right? It's like going from playing the blues to playing jazz, because you take this scotch liqueur and you evolve it. You have a blend of scotches now on Monkey Shoulder. How do you feel about just going further, deeper in to the scotch industry?
I'm super excited about it. In my history of being a bartender and all of the other jobs and hats that I've worn, Scotch I really never landed in that realm of whiskey. I ran a rum bar for a lot of years. Then I ran 2 different tequila bars and agave spirits. Never was whiskey, a place where I landed. So, having over the last few years moved into the brand world with a company, William Grant & Sons, which at its heart is a Scotch company, it kind of grew on me clearly, in regards of palate and being able to taste and to enjoy. But now being able to relish and live and to grow in this realm and really begin to learn is super exciting, because it's literally not just adding another notch to the belt, but it's expanding knowledge.
Absolutely.
And I love it.
Very, very deep category. You've got some wonderful label mates via Glenfiddich and Beth de Balvenie, right? So how do you... Sometimes blends get a bad rep. Now, I don't know why, because they're meant to taste good. That's their whole purpose. But for you, when you're out in the market, I know you've been doing this for just a short while now, but how do you think the perception about blends is coming along?
it's exploding this entire realm in and of itself, and with that explosion is taking all of these perceptions and kicking them out the window, busting them through the door, and it's really an awesome time for whiskey as a category right now, whether it's American whiskey and or Scotch. It's just on fire right now. So the really beautiful thing is that with Monkey Shoulder being where it is and really putting a firm foundation in this whiskey world, we're doing something completely different.
Yeah.
Of course, being a blend that's being put together by the phenomenal and outrageous and iconic Brian Kinsman himself.
Yeah.
And him creating and producing a liquid that, like most, but also unlike most, tastes delicious.
Sure.
That could be enjoyed neat or on the rocks. But beyond that, that should be used in so many different realms and places, which almost kind of harkens back to where I started with Drambuie, with wanting to showcase the versatility of that particular spirit, which was known again for the iconic and delicious Rusty Nail, but to showcase that it could be used in so many different realms, tiki, coffee, so forth and so on. Here we are with Monkey Shoulder, blended malt whiskey, and saying, yes, it's absolutely amazing, neat, it's totally delicious on the rocks, but how about we put Scotch in a tiki cocktail?
Do you like kind of boldly pushing that perception and causing people to be slightly out of their element, Scotch cocktails?
You have to, because there's always, there's that element of stereotype. When you think of Scotch in a traditional sense, you think, some old guy, with his cigar, in a smoke-filled room, he's listening to whatever type of music he is, he's laughing it up with his chums, all of that, and it's like, that's not it. Whiskey today, cocktails today, are male, they're female, the range in age, it's no limit other than, of course, being over 21 and drinking responsibly. But beyond that, of course, there's no face to it, and that's the beauty. So, beyond there not being a necessary face to the consumer, there's no face to the cocktail itself that it has to be, used in. So again, like we said with coffee cocktails and tiki and beer cocktails, it goes on and on. Scotch and frozen cocktails, of course. It's amazing.
Again, making me wish I had a bottle right here behind me. We're gonna have to remedy that very soon. But it's a delicious blend. It's versatile, or versatile, depending where you're from. You got a big job ahead of you, and one of the big facets of that job as an ambassador and in Scotch is education. You are here for your very first Ultimate Bartender Championship here in Austin, Texas. You're the director. You're the figurehead.
Man, they've kind of thrown me in there as the face.
You just got tossed into this whole thing. I'm trying to think of an example of a movie where a dude just gets tossed into battle. That's what happened.
Yeah,
you got some wounds. I see on your arm. There's a couple wounds there.
Yeah.
But how's it been going as the face of Monkey Shoulder now?
It's going absolutely amazing. To be very honest, it's a brand that's on fire. We just talked about it being a category that's on fire, but it's also doing something that's not being done out there. Pushing the idea that you can and should play with your whiskey. Yeah. We are in no sense pretentious in any sense of the thought or the idea. And again, to be used and to showcase its versatility in all of these different realms. So pairing that challenge and that goal, with all of these different, amazing bartenders from all across the country, it's the perfect pairing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting without, to come into something that's already established. You've got these super, heavyweight icons, in Ezra Starr and Dev Johnson and John and Chris Bostic, and, all of, coming in to give their experience and their knowledge and all of their expertise. And some people want to loop me in, and I'm sitting there, at the bar, kicking my feet, just excited to be in the room because these are people that I've looked up to and that I, hold a special place for them being able to teach me. We always learn. So to be able to see, the bartenders' faces light up when they get this information, and then to see Monkey Shoulder, this amazing liquid being used by these icons, but also it being used in all these different ways. Sure. It just makes literally for a match made in heaven that's just pushing everything that we often say, which is play with your whiskey.
See, you should play with your whiskey. Now, maybe you should do it privately. I don't know, but responsibly play.
Whether it's private or whether it's in public, it should be responsibly. But in both places, why not?
And pleasure-inducing, regardless of where it is.
Mm-hmm. I shall.
This enormous physical display of bravado that is the Monkey Mixer.
Yes.
I like it because it's like the Titanic, right? We're challenging both architectural boundaries and aesthetic ones. What the hell is the Monkey Mixer? Why is this riding around Texas? Is that where you buried Seb's body in the back?
I can't tell you that. They usually say, if I tell you, I have to kill you.
I don't want that. I got stuff this evening.
Yeah,
Okay,
but he's somewhere. Maybe someone will find him. I don't know. I think he's in the land of the unusual.
Ah, that's fair.
How about that?
That's good. Terry Gilliam's directing his ass right now.
Yeah, it's this beast of a machine, that's got these huge rubber wheels. It's just taking over the road everywhere it goes. And it's impossible for it to be on the road and you not to catch this thing. It's absolutely outrageous, It's gigantic. So essentially we took a concrete mixer in essence and literally turned it into the Monkey Mixer. So, where you would have the huge drum, we've made this huge cocktail shaker that has a capacity of almost 12,000 bottles if you think about it. So 2,400 gallons is really what it nets out to be.
2,400. Wait, am I doing the math right? That's incredible. Oh, yeah.
2,400 gallons.
2,400. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's the capacity of the drum. Now, we don't have it necessarily filled all with liquid.
The cement in Seb's body takes
semantics. Touche. But nevertheless, we've created this draft system where, we can literally serve cocktails from this huge Monkey Mixer. It's outrageous.
That's crazy. So I hear it's in Dallas today. Is that right?
It's floating all over the place. I was just in town last week. Sorry, I missed you.
Yeah.
At Austin Food and Wine.
Oh, that's right.
We had it there. We served some amazing cocktails there. The Mixed Up Monkey, which essentially is like a Collins, a little mint, club soda, scotch, a little lemon juice. Delicious, easy, light, bright, and refreshing. And we served them straight off the draft there. And, people and guests, see it and they're just mesmerized because I think they just see the sun hitting like the bright, cocktail shaker just shining and spinning. And then when they move a little closer, we actually are serving cocktails from this.
How do they stay cold, Vance? How do you keep those cold? Is it insulated?
Yeah, so we have a system where we keep it chilled down. I mean, I would have to show you. I mean, you literally have to see this
Just
thing.
I don't want to fate worse than Seb's. Don't, toss me in there.
No. And we'll do the private tour.
Okay, see, that's what you said to him.
Tour.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I did say that to him. I did. Man, you know all my secrets, brother.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
But that is an amazing, kind of like Barnum and Bailey style display.
We have to disrupt.
Yeah.
And again, this is a whiskey that disrupts. We're talking about, everything in the opposite direction of what you would think in the traditional sense. Again, we're not, you can have it neat or on the rocks, but we're talking about whiskey on the beach. We're talking about, whiskey cocktails for a happy hour, drinking whiskey cocktails for brunch and, sitting on your back porch or at a barbecue, like all of these different realms and places that the traditional sense you wouldn't necessarily think of, I'm drinking a pina colada, with monkey shoulder scotch.
Yeah.
Or, I'm drinking a sangria or, some other type of, funky frozen, drink. It's
you picture
outrageous.
it a whole other way.
Mm-hmm.
Disrupt. You've got the brains for that. You've got the attitude that's embracing yet challenging, right? This is the thing I think is really has to be a beautiful balance of both those things. You can have it traditionally if you want, but I also want to challenge you. And you're challenging us in literally the biggest format I've ever seen. So what's next then for you and this Monkey Mixer?
So it's been such an eye grabber and attention getter that it's just doing a huge loop up and down the West Coast, the Midwest, in and out. And I'm actually going to let you in a little secret.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should. I might get in trouble.
That's fine.
But you want to know?
I don't want you to get... I've got one of those... You remember Scream, how it distorts your voice? So I'll just do that and say it was Devin.
Marvelous. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We're creating another one.
Where's that going to go? For you? Just like for you?
We're creating another one.
Are you going to helm
I'm going to
this
leave it
thing?
at that. How about that? I'm going to leave it at that.
This is your convoy to drive around.
We're creating another one.
Wow.
So yeah, we've got that. So as for me, we're going to run one monkey mixer on the west. We're going to run one on the east. Have them flip all over the country. I'll continue on with the Bad Monkeys, with the academy that we've got, the Ultimate Bartender Championship. We've got 4 more cities to go. This weekend was Austin. I believe we have Seattle. I believe we have Los Angeles. We have Tampa.
And Denver.
Man. That's what we've got. And then we've got a distortion tour getting ready to come. It's like so much going on this brand.
Yeah.
It's mixed up. It's mixed up monkey.
Oh, that's good. That's clever.
I try, man. That's monkey business for you.
Vance, always good seeing you, man.
Pleasure is always mine, brother.
Certainly have to sip some more monkey shoulder. I mean, it's one of these things I talked about.
We're going to go do that right now. Don't even think about it. It's happening.
That's right. It is fate. When you get your CDL to drive that other monkey mixer, just take a lot of pictures, will you?
I think I would. I don't even think they would want me to have my CDL to drive the thing.
I just imagine this conductor hat. I don't know why. I just imagine you being a really good conductor of a big, large motor vehicle.
That's another conversation, brother.
I think it is. Vance, I hope you enjoy the rest of stay in Austin.
Always.
And you and the
some
team,
barbecue, man.
You and the monkeys, you enjoy Denver, Tampa, Los Angeles, Seattle, and so much more.
Always, brother.
Thanks, dude.
Indeed.
Talk to you soon.
Well, there we have it. Mr. Dev Johnson from Employees Only and Vance Henderson of Monkey Shoulder Blended Scotch. 2 veterans, 2 amazing personalities, great guys to sit down and chat with. Vance being the enormously big and friendly MC. Dev being more cerebral and actually academic in a lot of ways, and just a general compassionate person, someone that I would love to sit down and spend more time with. I think about these conversations a bit, and for me, in full disclosure, I'm not behind the bar. I spent a lot of time in bars and I've been in different parts of this industry, but I've learned so much. If I wanted to be a bartender, if I wanted to be a business owner, again, I've learned so much from these conversations. And I hope that in some respect, besides just hearing these nice little conversations with people you may know, may have heard of, maybe they're mates of yours, that there are some other learning takeaways or some education opportunities, and it helps you be a better person, perhaps. Maybe be a better employee, or just aspire to do something new and different and to learn more about the things around you. So many resources, and I hope this serves as one nice, friendly resource for anyone in the industry and consumers alike. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how you felt about Widows, if it was too slow or really was not what people claim to be the female version of Heat, both great movies in their own right. Or if you're thinking, man, Christmas is coming up, it's probably less than 20 or something days. Now, geez, what am I going to do? Please keep dancing.